Council President, we're ready. Good. Council agenda, Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, regular Township Council meeting of August 21st, 2018.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Law by filing the notice in the office of the Township Clerk and by posting the meeting notice on the bulletin board at the municipal building and on the municipal website on December 20th, 2017, where it has remained posted since that date. A legal notice appeared in the Daily Record and the Newark Star Ledger on December 27, 2017, and was forwarded by fax to other local newspapers on December 20th, 2017. Council meetings are videotaped and aired on Public Access Channel 21 at 7 p.m. Sundays and Wednesdays, and are also available for viewing at www.parsippany.net.
Please rise for the flag salute. Ms. Peterson, if you would.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I could ask you to just remain standing for a minute and have a moment of silence for Peggy Mader, who was a longtime township employee. She was the secretary of our planning board. She just passed away. Thank you. Roll call.
Mr. DiPiero,
Here.
Ms. Grignani,
Present.
Ms. McCarthy,
Here.
Ms. Peterson,
Here.
Mr. Carriffy.
Here.
Also in attendance are Business Administrator Alan Sandman, CFO Ann Cucci, Township Attorney Jim Lott, Township Clerk Colette Madden, Council President. We have a quorum. You may begin.
Thank you. Upcoming meetings, September 11th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. agenda meeting, and September 25th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. regular meeting. Approval of minutes, presentations, reports. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I have to have words with your clerk. Thank you, Mr. Council President. Good evening, Parsippany. There are some things that transcend politics. Not everything needs to be left and right and red and blue. And one of those things is service. And especially in this case, service to this town and service to this country. And I don't care what political leanings you have when it comes to that. That's something you have to respect. With that said, I would like to call down from the podium Councilman Michael J. DiPiero and his wife Dee DiPiero to come on up, please.
That's the first time you heard that, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to read this proclamation into the record. Whereas the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills honors Michael J. DiPiero as an extraordinary example of a man who dedicated his life to public service in his town, state, and country. Whereas we recognize his extensive involvement within the community since his arrival to Parsippany in 1965. Whereas the residents of Parsippany elected Michael J. DiPiero to the Township Council for four-year terms, that's 1982 to 97, and he returned to the council in August 2000 and is now serving his 9th four-year term. I'll repeat that, 9th four-year term. Whereas he has been a member of the Township Planning Board, Open Space Committee, and the Knoll Country Club Advisory Committee, and many others throughout his tenure. Whereas we commend his service in the Air Force during Vietnam, as well as his involvement as a member of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, Post 10184, and the American Legion, Post 249. Now, therefore, I, Michael Soriano, Mayor of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, do hereby dedicate the Knoll Country Club driving range in honor of Councilman DiPiero, and hereby proclaim the new name to be the Michael J. DiPietro Driving Range, dated this date, August 21st, 2018. Congratulations. I would also like everyone to know that this Saturday, we're going to have a dedication ceremony at the Knoll Driving Range, 2 o'clock, Saturday, 2 o'clock, at the Knoll Driving Range, where we will do the unveiling. Michael, would you like to say a couple of words, Councilman? Please.
Mayor, I'd like to thank you for this honor. I really, really appreciate it. I go back almost 50 years with the Knoll Country Club. A lot of you may not be aware, Bloomfield College used to own the Knoll Country Club. And back in the 1970s, the early 1970s, they were declaring bankruptcy and the Knoll was going out for bid. But first, some contractors wanted to save Bloomfield College, and so they wanted to build a new college for them at the Knoll Country Club. But first they had to build some 8-story high-rises to fund the college. So they wanted the township to change the zoning at the Knoll Country Club so they can build their high-rises. That's when I got involved in politics. That was around 1970. We formed a group called COCAP, Combined Organizations Concerned About Parsippany. Ed O'Mara, Harold O'Neill, Terry Vieira, David Shin and his wife Marilyn. We had civic leaders from all the different organizations in town. Usually we met at my house. And we formed 3 groups. The first group were the environmentalists. And if you remember back in those days, lower Lake Hiawatha used to flood every time it rained. And we would be taking some of those homes out, about 60 homes out, in rowboats. Not hurricanes, not Irene or Sandy, regular rain. So the environmentalists got the charts from the Army Corps of Engineers, and they calculated if you blacktop 341 acres of grass and trees, how many more trillion gallons would flow into the Rockaway River, and how many more homes would flood in lower Lake Hiawatha. Their calculations said we would have 460 homes underwater in lower Lake Hiawatha if we allowed them to do this. When we had the flood with Irene, 480 homes were damaged by the flood. So those calculations were pretty darn close, and that was 40 years earlier. So we petitioned the township not to change the zoning, and they didn't. And then Henry Luther was Governor Burns' campaign manager, and Governor Byrne was pushing for the first New Jersey State Green Acres bond. So we went to Henry, said, tell the governor we'll support the bond throughout Morris County if he promises that Green Acres will help fund the Knoll Country Club because we're going to buy it. That deal was made. And then Jack Fahey was the mayor then. And Jack Fahey says, I don't care who bids on it, we're going to condemn it and take it away, eminent domain. And that was the way Jack dealt with things. And nobody else bid, so we got it for $5.5 million, well, 341 acres. And Green Acres paid $2.8 million of that. Best deal in New Jersey. Now, I've been involved in it ever since. I've been a member for 43 years. I've pushed for improvements for all these years. About 18 years I've been pushing for this driving range to come back, and that's something I'm really happy with. Also, when they banned smoking indoors, a lot of our golfers would, after they finished their round of golf, grab their drinks and their cigars and go stand out on the front steps because they couldn't smoke inside anymore. So through 3 mayors, I was trying to get them to build a deck in the back because people coming in with weddings and taking pictures, and you got these guys in the background with cigars and drinks. It didn't make for good photographs out on the front steps. I was getting the complaints. So I kept saying, we need to put those guys, including me, in the back on a deck, and finally we got that too. So it's a labor of love for me with the Knoll. I've been on the advisory board all these years, and Mayor, thank you very much.
Okay. I'd like to call up the Reese family and the supporters here. Please, everyone. Everyone wearing yellow. Gold, right. Gold, come on up over here. Okay. Okay, all right, well, we'll do that soon, okay?
We just stand up so we get in the pictures.
Okay, let me read this other proclamation into the record. Childhood cancer is the leading disease-related cause of death among children in the United States, killing more children than asthma, diabetes, cystic fibrosis, congenital anomalies, and pediatric AIDS combined. Whereas it is estimated that 43 children per day, or 15,695 children annually, will be diagnosed with cancer in the United States, with the average age of diagnosis just 6 years old. Whereas 1 out of 5 children diagnosed with cancer will not survive the disease. Whereas 2/3 of childhood cancer patients will also suffer from long-term effects of comprehensive treatment, including treatment-induced secondary cancers, lung and heart damage, infertility, and cognitive impairment. Whereas childhood cancer research is vastly underfunded, with less than 4% of federal government cancer research funding going to study pediatric cancer. Whereas too many children are affected by this deadly disease, and more must be done to raise awareness and find a cure. Now, therefore, I do hereby proclaim that I declare the month of September to be Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. I encourage all citizens to support this cause that so deeply impacts families in our communities and across this country. So, just a reminder, September will be Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and the key color to wear is gold. Okay. Thank you very much, and I'd like to present this to the family. Mr. Council President, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Township Council?
I have several items for closed session tonight, Mr. President.
Okay. Business Administrator?
I just have one report, an update. You did get it in your packages. And we talked about how there are so many things that you can take the opportunity to investigate. And one of the ones was gov deals. And Saf, who is the intern and someone who's become a big part of making things happen in Parsippany. We talked last time about maybe $50,000-$60,000 of monies received from old vehicles and pieces of material that were no longer needed by the town. Well, I'm here to say that that has grown to the possibility, if we do, all the people that have bid and do put in for the money, we're talking about $172,852, and I always say add the cents because it sounds like a real number, and 96 cents. So, I mean, that is telling. There were 5 different locations throughout the town because of our size. We have, a town hall, we have public works, we have the water and sewer utilities. So it not only helped us raise the funds, they come and pick it up, we receive all that money. As of today, we've received in cash in excess of $110,000, and a majority of people have picked up. So if all goes well, there's a very good chance we'll hit about $170,000 of money coming in, and also, cleaning up the areas to provide for better service to our public. So these are the things that you try to uncover and do. And SAF, of course, and I did not do it alone. We had many people from Public Works and the sewer and water utilities work with us in conjunction in taking the pictures of the items and answering questions. So, and finding the titles for the vehicles was the majority of what was vehicles, but we did. And so that's good news. Money coming in the right direction. Thanks, and thanks for our intern. Thank you, Mary, for providing him to us by saying, come to a council meeting, and look what happened. Oh, and tomorrow he will be 21.
Township Clerk?
Just one thing real quick, Council President. Today, we had another shredded day for our archives, and as you guys know, we have an archive here, and one of the reasons that I was hired was to take care of the archive room, and up until this point, I think we've destroyed about 1,500 boxes, and we're in the process of really cleaning the entire room out. I mean, and it's no easy feat. If you've ever seen the archive room, more than welcome to show any resident if they'd like. Just come to my office and I can give you a tour of the archives. But it's a really big room, and it's no easy feat, and we're working on it. And the goal is to eventually rid the room of all documents except only permanent documents, as we're going to be going into scanning, and I'll have a more thorough report to you guys next meeting about the scanning. But that's where we're at now. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Township offices, committees, reports?
Just one item, if I may. On North Beverick Road, as you come up from Route 46, right after Bank of America, there's a vacant house, and there's an occupied house right next to it that are terrible eyesores as an entrance to this end of Parsippany and Lake Hiawatha. I bring this up every so often because the banks that own that vacant house, unless we subpoena them or do something with them, they do not maintain that property, and it's an eyesore in our town. I'd like that to be enforced. We have ordinances to force them to do the right thing.
Do you have the addresses on these?
You can't miss it. Just go up North Beverick Road. You'll know which ones I'm talking about.
All right. Because we are working on a myriad.
All the nods out here, everybody out here knows the ones I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We're working on.
Thank you.
Yeah. We will have a report at the next meeting on these. And maybe you won't need the report because you'll see the improvement.
Okay, thank you.
That's a promise.
Helen, I also have a
Okay.
address I want to give you.
Yes.
If we could look
Okay.
into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Similar situation to.
Okay.
to this.
Very good. Thank you, Council President.
Okay, bids taken, July 31st, 2018, road reconstruction project, Mount Tabor. To be taken, August 23rd, 2018, replacement of lamps at Knoll Tennis Club, Parsippany Community Center. Quotations, proposals, qualifications, none? Mrs. Peterson?
Closed session. Resolution, whereas the Public Open Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231 permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas the Township Council is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, and whereas the Township Council wishes to discuss 1, pending litigation and attorney-client privileged matters, Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, Mount Laurel 3, declaratory judgment requesting court approval of an amended municipal affordable housing trust fund spending plan and status of litigation. 2, contract negotiations, amendment of the shared services agreement with the Parsippany Troy Hills Board of Education for the deployment of Class 3 special law enforcement officers. And 3, attorney-client privileged matter, R 2018-151, resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, finding and declaring an emergency for the purpose of NJSA 40:69A-181, and authorizing the immediate enactment of ordinance 2018:15. And whereas minutes will be kept, and once the matter involving the confidentiality of the above no longer requires confidentiality, the minutes can be made public. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills that the public be excluded from this meeting. Motion to adjourn into closed session.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call. Roll call. So, Mr. DePiero.
Okay, before you take the roll, I just want to make sure we're having a closed session now instead of at the end of the meeting because we may have to vote on something after the closed session.
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted the public to be aware.
Yes, we will be
why we're doing it
taking,
now.
yes, we will be taking action after this closed session on at least one matter. With that being said, I will go ahead and take roll now. Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
We'll be adjourning in closed session. I'll be back shortly. Thank you.
With help from my friends.
Are back on the record.
Motion to reconvene?
Second, Grignani.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Mrs. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
We are back into public session.
Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to open up the public hearing.
Motion?
Second.
Okay, so the motion was made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
The floor is open to the public on any matter.
Okay, if you do come forward, please state your name and address. You'll be given 5 minutes.
Mr. Piccarello, if you could just speak into the mic.
Microphone, Frank.
And also, when you're done, you can sign it.
17 Stafford Road. I have this problem, and I have an easement in the back of my yard, and it floods like forever. And my neighbors down the street, it's from my yard, it goes out to the road, then it goes back to the other yards. Three houses down, it's been clogged solid. Engineering's been there a few times, and they can't get this unclogged, or, they can't solve this problem. Our pools are getting ruined. I put 3-4 liners in already, and my yard is a mess. My neighbor, his pool turned to mud last week with the flooding. And, I don't think engineering has the equipment to open up that line that's clogged, or have to see that something has to be done to put a new line in there, new pipe or something. But it's been going on forever. And why, we're getting that flooding. I don't understand why the yards, every time it rains, they just back up and our yards just keep getting a swamp. It's
What's
a
your
mess.
address, sir?
I need the address.
Address.
17 Stafford, but
Stafford, okay.
it goes down to like the 3 neighbors down.
If I may.
My engineering came in and put a new grade in my yard, and mine goes out to the street, it's fine. But going to the backyards of the other 3 houses, it's a mess. It don't go anywhere.
If I may interject, one of those houses happens to be my brother, Dan DeLeo. He is at 11 Stafford
11.
Road. He has a pool, and this has been a flood problem for several years, not
It's
just this
yeah, it's
past
not- It's
time.
I
I have
lo- I
called
lost the
engineering.
basement.
I have called engineering. I have spoken to Justin Lisa, and he tells me that they are aware of the problem, but they don't know where the blockage is. If the equipment, I said to him, if the equipment that the township has is not capable of taking care of this problem, then we should hire a company that does have the proper equipment to go to the different yards. Now, the problem is also, as Justin has told me, and I understand this perfectly, everyone has a fence because they have pools, so they can't go onto the property. I also said to him, perhaps you can go to the property in the back, ask permission to go to their property so you can get to these different homes. And he said that's very difficult to do. But he said he's trying to talk to the state because this line goes out to Route 46 where ShopRite and Home Depot is.
and it also goes out to Vale Road. And I said to him, forget about the state, these are residents, and we have to help them. Thank you, Frank, for coming before.
Since the condos were built on 46.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
I never had a problem before. I'm here 40-something years in my house. I lost a basement. This is my third or fourth liner now. Liner's all wrinkled. It's all behind the liner. Just every time you walk in, it's like a sponge.
Yeah, there's a huge tunnel that goes under Route 46 from that wetlands area. When Hovnanian built that townhouse complex, it took them 6 months to get permission from the state of New Jersey to clean out the state's tunnel for them. I would suspect that tunnel should be cleaned every year. It's a state responsibility. And I think we need to reach out to the state first, because if that tunnel fills up with silt, then the water can't flow through. It backs up into that wetlands area, which then backs up into all the drain pipes that come into there.
It's been a problem.
What I will do tomorrow, I will be meeting with Justin, and oftentimes when there's a situation like this, I don't meet with him or call him. I go down to the office and we sit and we work it out. I think we'll do a pincer movement here. We'll deal with the state as well as at the same time dealing with the local. And if we don't have the proper equipment, there's tons of companies that we can get the proper equipment up. And sometimes, in deference to Justin, he does a fabulous job. It's a big town and a lot of things. And I know you're not saying that, but what I'm saying is sometimes they should reach out to administration and say, this is so-called above my pay grade or above my, and come and we can work it out. So we're on the case, and that's not lip service. You will
Okay.
get action.
I appreciate it.
Thank
Ellen,
you
would
for
that,
coming before us.
the equipment that he was saying, that Justin said we don't have, would possibly the county have that
Yeah,
equipment?
that's what I'm saying. First, that's
Maybe
what
we
I
can
would
go
go
to the
to.
county
Yeah,
and
go to
ask
the
them.
county. We have great relationships with them and their public works
Yeah.
people, yeah.
Well, Justin has a giant rotor-rooter that can go about 200 feet. But to clean out the pipe, if there's roots in there,
Right, it could be-
you have to go even longer than that to get from one manhole to the next.
Right.
We'll,
I think he said his equipment can't go that far.
yeah,
or something.
yeah,
That's what I just said.
yeah, that's right. But the county does have amazing equipment,
Yeah,
as you
so
well
maybe we
know.
can get theirs.
Yeah. They've borrowed our tub grinder, so we'll borrow theirs.
There you go.
Yeah, they have.
Mary Przicki, Marcella Road in Parsippany. Two things. One, the area of Route 4 of Littleton Road and Cherry Hill Road, I know was discussed about 4 meetings ago, especially with the traffic problems that we're having. And I did have people come to my house and ask what could be done. Because it is getting worse. I mean, especially since that if, like I said, if Tevia comes moving in, and then you got the UPS, I think if they're coming in, the town should get a hold of the DOT, and they should be responsible too for some kind of upgrade in that area. Right now, that ground by Littleton Road was used as a field office area when they were redoing the interchange by 287. They guaranteed that would have been put back environmentally back to what it was, that it had trees and woods, and we had deer and things like that there. And we got a hold of Representative Panaccio, and we got I think Weber too, and yes, they got together with the town and they were going to put it back. Well, they put it back, but they didn't put it all back. And right now, if you look, all construction vehicles are there. There are now night lights set up there. And I was wondering if the town is aware of what kind of activity is going on up there and what the DOT is doing next. I mean, it wasn't supposed to be a construction yard. And that's what it's turned into again. And then the other concern is, with all the rain, I wonder if any of you have passed Waterview development. And I had asked a couple of times if there were going to be sidewalks there, and whether the sidewalks were planned in the beginning. I thought they were. And right now, that wall, the erosion that's coming from that wall down towards Route 46 is amazing. I mean, I can't see how structurally it's going to last. I don't know if any of you were aware of it. I went to the planning board and I wanted to see the plans, but you can't get them because they're out for microfiche, to see that are there supposed to be sidewalks there, and if there is, somebody sure put that wall in the wrong area. And today, it almost looks like they're redoing part of that wall. There's the man who would know about the sidewalks, I think, maybe. And, you know, before it gets worse and before it's done, somebody should go there and say, hey, look, is this being done properly and in accordance with what the planning board had specifically designed? So I think it's important. It really looks awful the way it is now, and somebody should take a look at it. But that area of town is just always constantly being built, and we are the ones subject to the traffic, and it's and you should protect the citizens who are walking on Route 46, but you don't. Now, can you talk about wildlife now?
No, that
or
will be at
That
the,
will be at
it's
the-
coming up. So as soon as it comes up in the ordinance for the public hearing, and that's
Well,
just
this
for
is the
everybody.
open session, so she can talk about anything right now.
No, she should really reserve it for the public
the public
hearing.
hearing.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
And
Thank
that's
you.
for everybody that has an issue with regards to RCW, it is coming up in the public hearing. So this way, for interest of expediting the entire meeting, we'll just wait until that comes up. Yeah, you are correct, Councilman DePiero, but there's just so much on. So in the interest of time, we've already held them up about an hour, so.
Nicholas Homiak from Lake Hiawatha. I'm just here just to remark, I've showed you this picture before. Parsippany and Morris County in general, we're not enforcing the mandatory recycle laws, and especially with business franchises. This picture was taken in Ringwood. This is what Parsippany, any mall or a business should look like. A person selling a point of origin items that will either turn into litter or recycle. I understand that Councilwoman McCarthy wants to start a plastic ban. The convenience culture of plastic and the free market laissez-faire over-engineered products are destroying, they have destroyed culture, and they're destroying the environment. And we have to, this town and all towns, we have to do something about what's happening. You can't find a place anywhere. Our infrastructure, our streets, our sewers are nothing but avenues of pollution. These pipes and everything, they're clogged with dirt, they're clogged with grass, they're clogged with plastic. No one cleans the street. Supposedly the street cleaner comes on North Beverwick on a Friday. Well, whether they are or not, I doubt whether they're being effective. I took a walk up there on a Sunday after the Friday, and I do frequent that area if I go to the bank or Food Town, and sometimes I pick stuff up and sometimes I don't. But if they cleaned up Friday, they left an awful lot of stuff that wasn't cleaned up. So I don't know if it was, because of a parked car, or they're just not doing a job right. My opinion, as a race of people, the American people, we've forgotten how to be clean. But the main question, are we, or can we, is it a hopeless case, enforce our own ordinances, sanitation ordinances? The recycle has actually become a part of the problem, especially with the plastic again. People leave it out, the wind will knock it over, and for some bizarre reason, once it hits the street, it doesn't belong to the homeowner anymore. It doesn't belong to the neighborhood. It doesn't belong to the community. It belongs to "In God We Trust," I guess. And then it goes down that pipe and, go down the Troy Brook or Forge Pond or any of those places. That's all you see with the water. It takes it. It's in the oceans. It's everywhere. But we have to start doing something, and this plastic ban is a good idea, but it's only a touch of the iceberg. There has to be some mass political movement to start outlawing all of this convenience. Now, Mr. DiPiero says the house over there on North Beverwick, and I know what house he's talking about. See, but I'm the kind of guy, when I pass it up, oh, that's an old house and the grass is growing. The grass doesn't hurt anybody. But take a look at that area and take a look, and you'll see plastic all over the place. That's a much more important issue for us to be concerned with or to be disturbed about than an old house where the grass is growing. So I would like an answer, though. Is it a lost cause?
1 minute, Nick.
Is it a lost cause in Parsippany or in Morris County, anywhere, to start making these people, these responsible for, the recycle, to try to stymie some of this cumulative effect that's all going to landfills, streets, and gutters? That's the only thing I'm interested in. Thanks.
Thank you.
Nick raised a question that it kind of makes sense. Those recyclable bins, whose responsibility would, let's say North Beverwick Road, should we require the shop owners to have something like that out there, or is that a township responsibility? We should, if we want to keep Lake Hiawatha neat, we should purchase those and pick them up, recycling bins? Question for the administration for the future.
One of the things, as you may or not be aware of, one of the visions that the mayor has been working on in the last couple of months is North Beverwick and dealing with that in a unified method. And one of the things certainly would be the recycling canisters as well as the trash, the double, thing, and to work in concert with the shop owners as well as the town and looking and seeking, and we are seeking grants to do that. So yes, it is being addressed, and it just does take time, but there's been a concerted effort. We've had 2 major meetings. We've brought in some stakeholders also, and there has been quite a bit of headway, and I guess the next meeting will have a lot more, and I think maybe as the mayor is here, I would just suggest that maybe a report of our third meeting, after our third meeting, to say all the other elements that have been done. I don't know if you've gone by, one in particular is zoning and has been working to remove the signage from, so I don't know if you've noticed some of that, which has been a tremendous positive effect with the area, and well as even you had spoken about, there was a rodent condition too that was brought up at that meeting and then addressed immediately, and so we're bringing all our department heads together, not just on the recycling aspect and the trash removal, but to make that be what it should be and is. The center of town, a center to be proud of. And Nick, we're going to work on that. And I will be, maybe before I leave, I'm going to get you that what you want, which is the barrel with the brush. And you said you would do that. So, and we'll put a name on it. Nick Homiak will write on that. I think we can afford to get that.
Thank you.
So, Ellen, now about the enforcement of those, do we have a record of what happens to these store owners? And there is a lot of debris outside of some of these.
Well,
stores.
that Nick does bring that up often, and yes, we actually hired, as you well know, Chad is our recycling coordinator and is working with it, and he does work under Greg Schneider, who is the enforcement arm, and they have done some improvements, but it's like the whack-a-mole thing where you push
Well,
down
are
on one
there
area and it
fines?
pops up, yeah.
Are there fines?
There are fines. We've
Have
tried
they?
to get
Have they
compliance.
fined?
At this point, I would say they've been very limited, if any, fines.
So,
I will
mean,
say that.
Is that something that?
That we should look into and say, we'd love to get compliance without trying to do fines, but there comes a point where how many warnings can you give? And I think it's time. It's time.
Yeah, I mean, there should
Yeah.
only be so many
Yes,
warnings before they're
absolutely.
fined.
I will have a discussion, and again, I think this will be something that, I'm pretty sure by September, we have had a plan to have another meeting on this. And, this will be a topic, but prior to that, we'll have some, input back from, Greg and Chad on, what they've been doing till we have the meeting
Yeah,
about
look-
enforcement.
In looking at this subject, I mean, there's a cost to that too, with the plastic bags going through the sewer system and whatnot. I mean, there is
There is. There's
It
always
is, yeah.
a cause and effect.
Okay, thank you. See no one else come forward, entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion?
Second, Grignani.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Floor is closed.
Mr. DePiero?
Before I read ordinance 2018:17, I need a correction on the appropriation of $13,360,000. And then what's that four-digit number after it?
067 it should have been.
067? Okay.
Just a very quick note for these next few ordinances, they're bond ordinances, so they're going to require 4 votes and not 3 votes, just for the record.
Bond ordinance 2018:17, bond ordinance providing for various capital improvements in and by the township of Parsippany Troy Hills in the county of Morris, New Jersey, appropriating $13,360,067, therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $12,692,064 bonds or notes of the township to finance part of the cost thereof. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills held on August 21st, 2018, and that said ordinance be further considered for a second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on September 11th, 2018, at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with a notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second, Grignani.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Ordinance 2018:18, bond ordinance providing for various improvements to the water utility in and by the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills in the County of Morris, New Jersey, appropriating $2,925,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $2,725,000 in bonds or notes of the township to finance part of the cost thereof. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on the first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills held on August 21st, 2018, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on September 11th, 2018, at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given the opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. McCarthy, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Ordinance 2018-19, bond ordinance providing for the various improvements to the Knoll utility in and by the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills in the County of Morris, New Jersey, appropriating $253,000, therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $253,000 bonds or notes of the township to finance the cost thereof. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills held on August 21st, 2018, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on September 11th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached, at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the resolution.
Second?
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mrs. Grignani?
Ordinance 2018:20, bond ordinance providing for the acquisition of a sewer jet vacuum truck for the sewer utility in and by the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills in the County of Morris, New Jersey, appropriating $500,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $500,000 bonds or notes of the township to finance the cost thereof. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on the first reading at the meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills held on August 21st, 2018, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on September the 11th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached, at the municipal building in the said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mr. DePiero?
Ordinance 2018:21, an ordinance appropriating $515,000 from the Sewer Utility Capital Improvements Fund for the acquisition of vehicles and the replacement of water meters in and by the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills in the County of Morris, New Jersey. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills held on August 21st, 2018, and that said ordinance be considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on September 11th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second?
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Ordinance 2018:12, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 430 zoning related to permitted accessory uses and structures in the RCW Recreation, Conservation, and Wildlife District. The notice for the ordinance above was published in the Daily Record, the official newspaper of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, on June 22nd, 2018. This ordinance was introduced at the June 19th, 2018 agenda meeting. Motion to accept that ordinance 2018:12 be heard in its second and final reading.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. McCarthy, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call. Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion to open the public hearing for ordinance 2018:12.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. McCarthy, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call. Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Okay, the floor is now open to anyone who would like to speak about this ordinance only that has to do with the rezoning with regards to the RCW, just so.
We should do the president.
Yeah, I think, Council President, if I may?
Yes.
I think that before we entertain public comment on the ordinance, I'd like to call Ms. Favati, the Township Planner. Welcome her to the governing body meeting tonight. She is going to substitute for Mr. Banish, who unfortunately had a conflict, but at request of council last meeting, we were asked to develop some mapping materials that Mr. Banish did provide us. And why don't we see if we can dim the lights for a moment, and we can go ahead and take a look at some of the mapping material and have Ms. Favati explain what the maps depict.
Just while we warm up, and hopefully it works. It worked a couple hours ago. There we go.
Do you have enough lighting to see?
I have plenty of light, yes.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you to the public for being patient. As Mr. Lott mentioned, I am sort of pinch hitting tonight for your planner, Frank Banish, who has been working with the township for some years, I believe, on this matter. But I have spoken with Mr. Banish and with Mr. Lott. I watched the tape from your meeting a couple weeks ago, so I feel ready. We actually did discuss this at a planning board meeting recently where the planning board made a determination of consistency with the master plan. So I have familiarity with this proposal. And one thing that struck me when I was watching the tape from a couple weeks ago was that there seemed to be some confusion kind of about what this is all about, what does it mean for me. I think some frustration I sensed. So I thought maybe it was good to take a step back and to kind of go through a little bit step by step, and I'll try to be brief.
Can you hear in the back?
Can you hear?
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, because
Maybe I'll-
the mic.
Why don't you hold it? You can talk better.
I'll hold it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Good, thank you.
So I'm going to try to just go through a little bit, step by step, without taking too much time, kind of about why we're here, what is this all about, and what does it really mean for particularly the neighboring property owners. So what this is really about, as Mr. Lott, your township attorney, mentioned last time, this is all about a settlement of a litigation, which I'm not going to get into, but it's been some years in the making. And so this is a zoning change, an amendment to an existing zoning district, the RCW, the Recreation, Conservation, and Wildlife District, which is part of that legal settlement between the township and wildlife preserves. It's not a development application. There is no specific development on the table here. No proposal for any building or structure in this zone. So what this really is just revising some of the provisions that govern accessory uses in the RCW district. And another thing to note is that it's not changing in any way the boundary of the RCW district. That will remain intact. It's really just what kind of activities can occur within that district. So in terms of where the RCW zone is, I mean, I think most people are most familiar with it in terms of the Troy Meadows area of the township. That's not the only place that it is found in the township. It is the most significant land area that the RCW is located. There are various other locations within Parsippany, Troy Hills that are zoned RCW. Many of them are owned by the township itself. Some are owned by homeowner associations or other nonprofits or the state or county. But really the crux of this matter is the Troy Meadows area because, and for reasons I'll get into in a minute, that is the only area that is affected by this particular zoning change. So a lot of notices went out. A lot of people were notified because their property abuts an RCW zone, but they probably, unless they're next to the Troy Meadows, they may not be affected. I think there was an exercise of caution in fulfilling the requirements of the MLUL and notification. It was a hefty lift, I know, on notifying all those property owners, but it's because the RCW does exist elsewhere in the township. So what is being proposed? What is before the council tonight? Really, it's just some changes to the classification and a little bit more detail on the permitted accessory uses within this zone. As I think most people know, this zone is all about conservation of land. So there are very few principal permitted uses in the RCW zone. It's basically agricultural and recreation-related uses, and that's it. No residential uses, no commercial uses unless they're recreational in nature are permitted now in the zone, and that will not change. What is changing is that the zoning is proposed to be more explicit about the types of accessory uses that are allowed. Right now, it just says anything incidental to the principal permitted use. Doesn't give an example of what that is, doesn't give any kind of parameters for that in terms of location, size. It leaves it pretty open. So what this zoning change would do would basically call out 4 specific accessory uses that would be permitted. 1 environmental education center, 1 maintenance garage, 1 ranger relief station, and an unspecified number of nature observatory structures, so like bird watching structures, for example. So as I mentioned earlier, there's currently no residential use allowed in this zone, and that will not change. There will continue to be no residential uses allowed. And except for commercial recreation uses, no other types of commercial uses will be allowed, as currently is the case. There are a number of controls that are also proposed on these accessory uses, which really get at controlling the location and the scale of potential development of these accessory uses, really by 3 main factors. The first is size. So each of these types of accessory uses is limited in terms of its building coverage. For an environmental education center, it's 4,000 square feet. For the maintenance garage, it's 1,000 square feet. And for the ranger relief station, it's 850 square feet. There's also a limitation on where these things can be. There are buffers established of 150 feet from any residential zone, the lot line of any residential zone. So any structure, any of these accessory structures would have to be located at least 150 feet away from that residential zone. And it's worth noting that that's one of the most restrictive, if not the most restrictive, setback requirements in all of the township of Parsippany Troy Hills. We looked today and we found there's one of your office zones, the SED5 zone, that has like a 100-foot setback, 100-foot front yard setback. Otherwise, I couldn't find anything that was as strict as this. So this is quite a distance requirement for these accessory structures. And then the last restriction is on access. It's very particular that public access has to be from either South Beverwick Road or Troy Meadow Road and no other road. And then I buried the lead. This only applies to properties that are 200 contiguous acres owned by the same property owner. So it's because of that that only the Troy Meadows area is even relevant to this conversation, because there are no other that we could find RCW areas in Parsippany that meet that criteria, that are 200 contiguous acres and that are owned by one entity. So we're really talking about what's on the map before you, and I'll get to in a minute, the Troy Meadows area, and even more than that, it's subject to these particular requirements on size, buffers, and access. So I know that there was a lot of desire at the last meeting to see this, to visualize this. So Frank Banish and his office did prepare these maps, and I'll go through them. I think Ellen might have some printouts if anybody wants to take a look, but they're up here. And what this really shows, this is the Troy Meadows area, the RCW zone, and this is really showing ownership. So the light green is wildlife preserves, which, as is obvious from the map, owns the majority of this area. I think it's about 3/4 of the acreage of this site, of this zone. Other owners are the state, the county. There's another nonprofit group that owns a small parcel. The township itself owns some of this land, and then there's a couple privately owned parcels. But the majority of it is owned by wildlife preserves, and that's what helps get them to that criteria of 200 contiguous acres owned by one entity. There, as you can see a little bit, I don't know if everybody in the audience can see, there are parcels within this zone, but they're owned by that one entity. And this map, the most obvious feature here is the blue, and that is wetlands. So this is a really important factor in this conversation. I just went through the limitations that are in place in the proposed zoning as to the location, the buffers, the access, and the size of these these potential accessory structures. But they're further limited by the fact that the vast majority of this land is in a wetland. So you can see on this map, the blue shows a wetland area that really is not buildable for anything of substance. I mean, you'd have to get DEP approval. So it's very difficult to develop anything significant there. And then further, you can